And now it's time for one of my all-time favorite desserts, key lime meringue pie. So let me just jump right into it. The nice thing about a key lime pie is its simplicity yet complexity at the same time. And I love that the crust is so easy. It's a graham cracker crust. I start with 1.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs. You could pretty much use any crushed cookie crumb you wanted. And of course, to tie in with the tropical flavors, 1/2 cup of sweetened flaked coconut. I do like to use the sweetened coconut in my crust because I find it a little more tender than the unsweetened. I've melted 6 tablespoons of butter, and I'll just pour that over top and just stir to coat the crumbs. I'm baking my key lime pie in a glass pie plate. I like glass for pies because it holds the heat so well. And there's no need to grease the pie plate. Press it up the sides and into the bottom. Just like baking a graham crust for a cheesecake, it only takes 10 minutes in a 350 oven. You're simply setting the crust. And now it's time for that decadent filling. And the decadence starts with condensed milk. That is what is behind a key lime pie. This is 300 milliliters. And essentially, this filling is like making a custard. So instead of using whipping cream and adding sugar to it, we're just going right for the sweetened condensed milk. Before I juice my limes, I'll make use of the zest on the outside. And look at the size of these lovely limes. These are actual key limes. I love the fragrance of key limes. They've got a more delicate perfume than a traditional lime. I need 1/2 cup of lime juice, so I'll just cut these in half and then just start juicing. If you don't have access to key limes, of course you can use traditional regular size limes, or if you're lucky enough to come across calamansi limes, these are from the Philippines, and oh my goodness, when I traveled there, these were my absolute favorite. And just look at the color. When it comes to baking desserts, especially when citrus is the theme, I find the fresh juice is always better. There we go. I'll measure my 1/2 cup of juice through a strainer just to pull out any seeds and pulp that may have snuck through. Let me add a splash of vanilla. Just a teaspoon will do. I'll give this a little whisk before I add the egg yolks. As you can see, key lime pie isn't actually green. If you want a green pie, you can add a bit of food coloring, but I like the more natural look. The last addition, 4 egg yolks. And I want to save the 4 whites because they're going to be part of the Italian meringue on top. I'll just hold these aside and whisk in the yolks. It's that combination of the sweetened condensed milk, the egg yolks, and the acidity from the lime juice that gives this filling its beautifully satiny, silky texture and just so rich. I'll pour this into my cooled crust. Being a custard, you want to bake this gently, so I've preheated my oven to 300 degrees, and it takes about 30 minutes to bake. To check the doneness, you do the jiggle test, just like you do for a custard or a cheesecake. Little shake. When it jiggles just at the very center of the pie, then you know it's time to pull it out. And my key lime pie is now fully cooled and chilled. So we can top it with an Italian meringue using the whites and adding to that 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. With the torrone and the marshmallows, I had other ingredients involved. Here, it's just the egg whites and the cooked sugar. So now, I'll whip this to just below a soft peak. When it comes to meringue, there's some basic styles. French or common meringue is just egg whites whipped with sugar, just like I have here. Then there's Swiss meringue, which is egg whites warmed with sugar and then whipped. Then you have Italian meringue. That's where we cook the sugar and pour it into whipping egg whites. Now to get my sugar ready. I'll start by adding 3 tablespoons of water to my pot and a full cup of sugar. I'll cook the sugar to 240. Once the sugar starts boiling, it doesn't take long for it to reach 240. I'll start the mixer on high and carefully pour the sugar down the side of the bowl. I want to let this whip for a few minutes just to cool it down before I put it on top of the chilled pie. There we go. Now that it's whipped till it's cool to the touch. It's still a bit warm, but I can put my hand on the bowl so I know it's the right temperature. I've got a piping bag fitted with a star tip. We're gonna add some flair to this key lime pie. And I'll put almost all of the meringue into the piping bag. And you can see there's an airiness, but also a density to this meringue. Before I start piping the meringue, I have saved a little in the bowl so that I can put it right in the center of my key lime pie. It's the fact that Italian meringue is cooked and stable that it suits meringue pies. Once you make it, it stays in place and there's no condensation nor weeping underneath it. So it's ideal for a chilled pie like the key lime or even a traditional lemon meringue pie. Now that I've got this bit of elevation, I'm gonna work with the star tip and create some spikes. We're gonna give this key lime pie a bit of a hairdo. So I like to start in the center and work out. And remember, if you're not happy with your work, you can just scrape off the spikes and start again. And if you're not sure of the height, you can even build on top of the meringue. I'm going to leave some of my key lime filling exposed around the outside edge. That way you know what's hiding underneath the meringue. We're accustomed to seeing a nice browning on top of a meringue pie, so what you can do is pop it in the oven for 5 minutes at 400 degrees just to get the browning. Remember, it's not to cook the meringue, or if you have access to a butane torch, you can go for the toasted marshmallow effect. There we go. Now you can see why I chose a star tip, because it really shows off the browning nicely. Because the base is chilled, you can slice and serve this pie right away. Oh, and there we go. Don't you just love that contrast? The fluffy meringue, and you know that key lime filling is just so rich and decadent. This truly is my favorite pie. And it's all thanks to Italian meringue.